And I had another similar moment when I was down in Jordan, overlooking the Dead Sea. I was in the company of a couple of Muslim brothers who were guiding a few of us through the desert. And most people had gone to bed, but these two guys said, "Do you want to see something really special?" And I thought, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll go along for that." And then we went for like a 20-minute walk and through these mud flats, and you could see absolutely nothing. It was night time, but they knew the way. And then we were brought out onto this ledge, and it overlooked the Dead Sea. They pointed to me on the far side of the Dead Sea, this kind of twinkling light, and they said, "That's Jerusalem." Wow, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, you know, they sat about talking, I talked with them, and they were just, just absolutely lovely people. And I remember sitting there, and then it was time for them to pray. And they went about their prayer, and I just watched them, absolutely transfixed by this, but not really knowing what to say or what to do or to ask, or maybe I shouldn't even be looking. But it just felt so peaceful, so tranquil, and they seemed almost energized when they got up from their prayer. And again, I had a very similar thing in Cairo at the end of the journey. Now, by and large, I don't particularly like Cairo. Cairo is full of people who see you as one big dollar sign on legs, and that got a bit tedious after a while. I thought my name was Bakshish after a while, but yeah, it turned out not to be. No, I remember being up on the roof of this hotel. It was by Mustafa Kemal Square. It was just a few minutes away from the Islamic Quarter. And I was up there, and I had a bowl of kushari in one hand, sugarcane juice in the other, and the biggest argila you have ever seen sat in front of me. I'm puffing away, sipping my juice, tucking into the kushari. This is all, it cannot get any better than this. Then the last rays of the sun went down, and to the left of me, and I looked over, an azan went off. This muazzin came out on this really crackly electronic system, and he let loose. And then a few seconds later, another one went off, and then another one, and then another one. And very soon there was like this whole, almost like electronic, crackly choir of these azans all going off. And it was like I don't know how to describe it, but it was, for those of you who've spent any amount of time in a Muslim country, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it was very special for me. Again, I wasn't Muslim, but I laid back my head and I let it wash over me, wash through me. I had no idea, but it felt good, it felt right, it felt absolutely almost indescribable. I'm not very good at describing it, but yeah, it was pretty special. But again, I never actually had anyone who I could talk to ask my silly questions of. And again, I didn't get the chance to ask any silly questions until I came back to Australia. Unfortunately, I went for a rather messy divorce and ended up living out in Perth. Now, I was living with this bunch of students in this house, and there was one of them. His name was Amar al-Salam, an Egyptian chap, and the most humble, polite, well-mannered, patient and hospitable person I had ever known in my life. And he put up with some absolute rubbish from people, not just from non-Muslims who were racist and stuff to him, but from other Muslims who just simply took advantage of the fact that he had a car and he was happy to take them around or lend them money and never see them again. And I watched this, and I saw this, and the thing is, right, immediately I knew that I could trust him, because I'd seen his manners and I'd seen the way he was with people. I knew I could trust him. I didn't really know why, I just knew I could. And so in Amar, I found someone who I could ask my silly questions of. And I did. I asked a lot of questions that were silly, and some of them really, probably, in hindsight, quite offensive. Now, as a non-Muslim, I had no idea. I didn't know the boundaries. I didn't know the rules. We do. I do now. I didn't then. And we'll often be asked some questions that we might find offensive, but you've got to remember that they're not necessarily intended to be offensive. So I think we all need to be cognizant of that. But I do remember coming home one night. It was actually reasonably cold, and and I could see the light was on in the house, but I didn't have my key. So I knocked on the door, banged on the door, no one came. So I walked around the side of the house, and I could see him. Right, he was stood in the middle of this room, but he had his back to me. So I banged on the window. Amar, Amar, let me in. Come on, mate, it's freezing. Come on, hurry up. And then he bent over. And then he'd back up again. All right, mate, come on, please. Can you hear me? Hello, bang, 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 bang. And then he's down on the floor. I'm like, oh, maybe he's lost his keys as well, and he's having a look for them. Oh, there he is, back up again. Jolly good. Amar, hello? Amar, can you hear me? Oh, man. Oh, seriously. Oh, look, he's bending over it. Oh, seriously. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's doing aerobics or something. So I went round and sat on the front doorstep and I sulked. And then a couple of minutes later, he came along and he opened it up and he was so apologetic. He was like, I'm so sorry, sure, I'm so sorry, you know, but I was praying. I said, mate, couldn't you have just stopped praying and, you know, and let me in? Blimey, come on, seriously. He's like, well, no, I couldn't. I was actually in the audience with God. Oh, right. And what, he'd have an issue if you let me in the door? Yes. And this didn't kind of make sense. Like, the guy who was so hospitable and caring and considerate of everyone was quite happy to put his prayers before me, you know, and I was his mate. I didn't get it. And also, this idea of a Muslim didn't quite fit into, you know, all these other things that I'd seen in the previous year or so. These fellas who were quite happy to fly their aeroplanes into buildings and blow things up, and it just didn't match. How could this guy, who I could quite easily say was the nicest person I've probably met in my entire life, be like them? It didn't make sense. How could that possibly be the same thing? And so I went about asking him. And the nice thing about Amar was that if he didn't know the answer to anything, and I asked some pretty silly questions, really technically stupid questions, he would actually not guess or tell me to be quiet or just ignore me. He would actually go and find the answer every time. And I respected that so much, you know. And I'll tell you what, over the months that I lived with him in the same house and watched him and saw what an incredible person he was and how devoted he was to this thing, Islam, that combined with not the news stories that I'd seen, but with the other people that I'd known throughout my life, it made a kind of sense to me. Now, where did Shawnee actually find the real Islam? Because at that point, I said to him, I said, Amar, I think I want to be a Muslim. And instead of going, Allahu Akbar, you know, and dancing around like I thought he would, he didn't say that at all. Quite the opposite. In fact, he said, I don't think so. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was really disappointed. I thought he was going to be hugging me and calling me brother. But he didn't. He said, look, okay, let me put it this way, Sean. When you say Shahada, which is the testament of faith, okay, those two phrases that are in Shahada, they are the foundation upon which absolutely everything else is built. And until they mean absolutely everything to you, and you know exactly what you're saying, then don't say them. You can't just guess at it. You can't just, you know, say it and it's a key and you're in and you're a Muslim. Yeah, technically you are, but it's so much more than that. And so it was actually another couple of months before I said Shahada. The thing that prompted me to go as far as, because what he said made sense, okay? You know, it wasn't just a fashionable thing to do, it wasn't cool to be a Muzzy, you know. No, he was right, this was a lifetime commitment, so I had to, you know, really seriously think about it. And it was probably a couple of months later, not that long, a couple of months later, I was walking back from the shop at my place in Perth. I'd moved away from Amar, by the way, sorry. I moved away from him like a few weeks earlier. I was walking back from the shop and I realised that I'd not paid for something, some coffee milk. So I went back to the shop and I went up to the checkout chick and said, look, can you take my money because you didn't last time? And she looked at me as if I was crazy, but she took my money. I felt really good. As I was walking back to my house, there was no one around at all, but I saw in the road there was a brick. So I went over and I picked it up and threw it out of the way. And that felt absolute. I was on a high from it. I moved a brick, big deal. No, but it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. I went back and I printed out the Al-Fatiha that someone had transliterated for me. I printed it out and I tried to pray. God knows what direction I was facing in. God knows what I actually said, because it didn't bear any resemblance to the Al-Fatiha I know today. But it felt good. The week after I flew out to Sydney, I had some new friends out there and I said Shahada. Now, one other thing that happened just shortly after that, I moved to Sydney, I got married, alhamdulillah, and I started working with some wonderful people like Ben, brother Ben at ING. A few of us went out to Lakemba and we went to the mosque. We went to Jasmine's first and then we went to the mosque. I had with me my brand new iPod. Now you've got to realise at this point, I am a brother to absolutely every Muslim on earth. I love everyone. I am just like you wouldn't believe. Everyone, I was hugging them, telling them how much I loved them, and you know. And the most beautiful thing, my very first Ramadan, my very first iftar, there were 19 different nationalities in there, and it was awesome. I was in the Lakemba Mosque. We did Salat Maghrib, and then there was a lecture by Sheikh Shadi. So I sat down and listened to it. Just as we were preparing for Salat Isha, I went over to the wall to where I'd left my bag. My bag, the contents were everywhere. Someone had stolen my iPod. And I broke down in tears. Now, some of Sheikh Shadi's boys came up to me like, "We'll get him, bro, we'll get him." You know, and that was great, but that wasn't what was affecting me. Another one said, "It's just money, bro, I'll give you money." But that wasn't it either. I was crying because something inside of me had very almost been broken. Very almost been broken. To this day, I still don't have that initial high that I had, because I've seen all too much of some of the things in our community. But the important thing is that we do carry the banner ourselves, because it's not through interfaith dialogues. They have their place, they're great. And it's not through changing the media, because we'll never change anything through that. The way we change our position in this community is by going out and being friends with people, by mixing with non-Muslims, showing them how human we are. We've got non-Muslims here tonight, alhamdulillah. I'm happy about that. By being our own media, by doing our own thing, by letting everyone else know that we are these ordinary Muslims. We're not these leaders who are anti-dawah. We are these ordinary people who are just doing ordinary things. And brothers and sisters, if that's the one thing I leave with you tonight, because I believe I've really overstayed my welcome, then let it be that. Go out, be friends with people, show them that you are the Amars of this community, and that we are an amazing people. We have so much to offer, and inshallah we get to show as many of these people as much of what we've got as we can. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.